This is the Nightwolf. How you? And today we're going to take a look at the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Queen Marlena figure, the heroic Queen of Eternia, part of the Filmation cartoon collection. I believe this figure and Randor are probably the last of the Filmation cartoon collection figures that they'll be releasing, which is sad because they really didn't finish off our cast and crew. On the back, we see an image as seen on The Rainbow Warrior, where we show Marlena standing in her queenly gown, and we also see her in her spacesuit, modernizing and celebrating the original 1980s Masters of the Universe animated series. And you can put on her space helmet, pose in powerful battle positions. Oh dear God, that looks awful. As part of this wave, we of course had King Randor, the heroic ruler of Eternia, and Queen Marlena, the heroic Queen of Eternia. Let's go ahead and open this sucker up, shall we? You know, she may have the highest heels in all of the Masters of the Universe series of figures. So we have her little white card here that shows all the parts that can be taken off of her. And we have our comic book courtship. Same thing we got with Randor, which was kind of what I was expecting. And unfortunately, it's just so poorly done. So basically, if you want to see the dramatic reading I did, you can look at the King Randor video. I know it'll torture you to do so, but you know, why not? So Adam goes to get some advice from his father because he is trying to figure out how to tell somebody you love them. Of course, this does highly imply that Teela is the person Adam wants to confess to, which makes sense. Although, you know, when you watch the Filmation cartoon, it certainly seems like Teela has torn between He-Man and Adam a couple of times. And it's just subtle things, you know, it's not like today where, you know, when you watch cartoons made for kids, they're like just like tonguing each other eventually. But Randor decides to give Adam his advice by telling him a story, the story of how he met his mother. And it didn't take 9 years and 300 some episodes to do it. You know, they see the ship come down and Randor and his troops go to check it out. And this should still be when Randor was the prince. They see the ship and someone trying to come out, and Randor manages to catch her before she falls to the ground and kills herself. Randor also starts showing Marlena around, and she calls herself the greatest pilot of Earth. Because she can't just be a good pilot or a pilot. They have to go all girl boss, which is one of those things that tends to ruin a lot of these stories, which is sad because, you know, Marlena is actually a really great character overall, but when they start doing this kind of bullshit, it kind of just drains the like out of her. But Randor does make the suggestion that perhaps she could help him rule Eternia when the time comes, and she's like, oh, but we just met and you seem to have fallen in love with me, because apparently she's the greatest pilot and love at first sight is just not a real thing. However, they do run into Keldor, who... this would be technically our real first time seeing Keldor as part of the Filmation universe, I want to say, technically. Where he apparently hits on Marlena too, because, you know, he's got to have what his brother wants, that type of thing. I do appreciate this, ew, no thank you, at the end, though. Keldor and Randor fight, and unlike in the 2000X cartoon where Randor can kick Keldor's ass, Keldor actually beats Randor here, and then Marlena has to save the day by bringing a knife to Keldor's throat, which again, if it hadn't been for them trying to do the girl boss thing earlier, I actually would have really liked this a lot better. But Randor has a surprise for Marlena. Her ship has been repaired by the engineers at the Eternos Palace, which when you get right down to it probably means man-at-arms, but you know, whatever. And this gift, his willingness to let her go, is what makes her decide that she will stay here. But of course, there's actually nothing from her about being in love with him at all. So we know Randor more or less fell in love with her, but she doesn't really apparently say anything about it and decides she wants to have power, right? Because she's a girl boss, she needs to have power, not love. Not that the story is particularly useful for what Adam's question was, if we're being perfectly honest. But then they have this last bit at the end where Marlena's like, oh, please, there's more to it than what your father told you. And if you want to learn a thing or two about love, ask the queen. She knows more than you realize. Which again, if it wasn't for the girl boss thing and the lean here, like, I don't know, just comes off as toxic to me. Like, this comic made me not really like Marlena. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So it's very sad. That being said, she comes with her space helmet in white. They're kind of sounds like they're trying to take after the classics thing where you remove her dress and you can make her into the pilot mode, but not quite as well done. So let's go ahead and do that real quick before we start getting into too much. Her hair, of course, comes off. Her helmet has a little peg in it to go in her head, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Now, this is also kind of sad because it would have been nice if they'd given us a second hairpiece for her to go with that other look in the comic. You know, this would have been a nice head to go if they really wanted to give us this, because if this is what you're supposed to put the spacesuit on, or the space helmet to kind of recreate her spacesuit, I'll let Dexter talk for this one.
You're so stupid! 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 Stupid!
And while the helmet does actually resemble the cartoon version quite a bit, obviously the spacesuit does not. So the helmet was probably one of the most pointless things they could have done. We really should have gotten a younger haired style without the crown. That would have actually been pretty nice and would have fit with the comic story. Again, this is what I meant by it seems like she might have had the highest heels out of the cartoon collection. Because I think these may be the same as She-Ra or they might be taller. I'm not 100% sure on that. But that being said, this is definitely not going to fit the spacesuit mold, right? It's kind of sad, too, because I was kind of looking forward to seeing her wearing the little bustier thing like all the other female characters are underneath their clothing. But I'm going to make the assumption that most people are probably not going to have her posed in that outfit, especially since they didn't give us a decent head for it. So let's go ahead and get her dressed again. And I'm going to straight out say this is a huge pain in the ass. Got to give credit to those 9-year-olds in the factories. They're being able to get this stuff on here for packing it up. Oh my god. All right, that being said, let's take a look at her articulation as the queen. Her head is on a ball joint. It spins around. Look down, look up, look kind of sideways to the side, over and up. Standard. Her crown is appearing to be a separate piece to the hair. So that it's glued onto the hairpiece, which is, again, too bad they didn't give us the younger hairstyle. Face sculpt actually looks really good on her, though. Like, the paint job was well done, although I'm surprised they didn't give her blue eyes. And I like the lipstick. So the arm spins 360, hinges outward. We have single hinge at the joint there, elbow, spin at the wrist. She has up and down articulation on her right hand and in and out articulation on her left. Her joints are extremely tight. We have the full 360 at the waist. And now this is going to be the fun part. She's got 2 giant slits in her dress, which would be really awesome in a real dress like this. But, you know, again, we just see her legs, which is kind of boring. She can break in half when you go to try to move her legs. But with the dress on, of course, even with the slits in there, you can't really get the legs to move at all. Like that little bit there and that little bit in the back. So you kind of do her walking at best. The knee, though, does bend at about 90 degrees and can spin on that hinge. She's wearing the same boots as She-Ra, by the way, and we can spin at the boot cut. And the foot hinges up and down and spins all around. So I guess it's probably pretty clear that I don't really like the way they present her in the comic, because it really did feel like, and I actually showed the comic to V and she kind of agreed with some of this. They just tried to go girl boss with her, and that just, honestly, let's be honest, over the last few years, the girl boss thing makes female characters unlikable overall, and this does kind of make her unlikable. The thing is, if they hadn't done some of that stuff, specifically, if they hadn't gone ahead and done the pilot thing, the greatest pilot thing, I would have enjoyed her taking the knife to Keldor a lot more, but that's just me, and I'm sure it's actually I'm pretty sure it's not just me who kind of has those kind of thoughts. Like I said, V kind of had the same thoughts too. And just at the end, she felt very condescending at the end of the comic, and I don't like that. Although I'll once again say, kind of in my head canon, I do have Queen Marlena trying to get Adam and Tila together as kind of a side thing, but that again is my head canon. I actually started a fan fiction a long time ago for 2000X where the Queen was very devious in her attempts to get Tila and Adam together, but I never published it. But that's a whole separate thing, and I'm not going to talk too much about that. But as far as the figure goes, not bad. Like, if you want to just display her as a queen, she's perfectly fine. I do think they screwed up by not giving us the younger hairdo if they're going to give us the outfit that she's wearing in the comic as a younger person. And the helmet is just absolutely pointless overall. That's just going in the parts bin because it doesn't go with anything else she's got on. If they wanted to give us a Queen Marlena in her flight suit and give us a helmet, that would have been fine. Although the helmet's also kind of garbage too. Like, I didn't really go over the helmet very much, but you could probably notice that it doesn't cover her full face either when you put it on her, because that visor just doesn't cover everything. So it's just dumb. But at least we got a Queen Marlena in the cartoon collection to go with Randor. Hopefully when they do the 2000X ones, they give us that version of her. And I want the young Randor and the young Marlena when they're actually fighting Keldor, because those were badass versions of those two. But why don't you guys let me know what you think about this figure in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this review. Yeah, I know I was bitching quite a bit about the story, but why don't you guys actually let me know what you think about that story too, and do you kind of agree with me with the way they presented Marlena in it? Because once again, she doesn't even say anything about having feelings for the king exactly, so it does kind of come off as, oh, I can be a ruler, I can be powerful, hooray. But if you enjoyed this review, please feel free to punch that like button, and if you want to see more of my nonsense in the future, you can subscribe. Also, if you want to, go ahead and hit that notification bell. I thank you for watching. Peace and love.